Kathleen, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here. This is going to be a great episode for anyone who feels like they need more organization in their life, which I am like the very first person to tell you I'm not an organized person. So I'm going to specifically ask you all my questions I want to know.
Okay.
But Kathleen, if you could do me a favor, tell me who you are for anyone who is not aware of you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and the company that you run.
Sure. I have a few interesting things to say about the word organized, getting organized, that whole concept. But I am an efficiency coach because the end result of my working in the three areas that I specialize in is getting more done with less effort and less stress. And that's like the definition of efficiency. So I specialize, the company 5 out of 5 specializes in office. Now, organization is a tool, so I use the word, but it's a little bit, too bandied about these days. It's almost lost its meaning in a way.
I think it has.
Because people say it, but they don't know how to do it, and so it doesn't really have an impact. But an orderly, functional workspace. The second area of expertise is creating a schedule that you can actually live with instead of chronically overbooking, instead of trying to fit that size 16 to-do list into a size 4 calendar. And then the third area is systems development. And that's typically for entrepreneurs, but I'm not a software person. I just have created a simplified method to do the most important step, which is get the priority systems off the back burner with a very straightforward model, because what there is to understand is that business is iterative. So just create the first draft. It becomes a dynamic document that you can then reference and improve upon and edit and delegate. So those are the three areas of the business. And I do a variety of delivery models. I have a free ebook called All the Rules to Keep Your Desk Clear Forever. I have On Demand, which I'm very excited about. I'm launching that at the end of the month, end of May. And I'm also doing some mini workshop webinars around those three areas called Where Should I Start?
I love that. You're like on a mission to help people in whatever format they most need it.
Yeah.
Okay. I liked what you said about organization has kind of lost its meaning because it is overused. And because I am not naturally an organized person, I kind of cringe when I hear it. Why do you think people are misusing it, or why is it kind of so misunderstood? And like, what would be your definition of like organization?
Yeah, I think of organization as a tool, and it's also somewhat of a skill. And honestly, it really comes down to being the capacity to group like items together. Now, what has made it, given a lot of mischief to it, is that people confuse tidying up with getting organized. And that is always a temporary structure. And that's what I talk about when I say functionality, whether it's in your workspace or your calendar or your systems. What's a reflection of your business model in terms of paperwork, for example? So people have the FOF syndrome, fear of filing, which is actually...
I've never heard of that.
And the reality is it's fear of not finding. So even the file cabinets are like horizontal haystacks. So that is what, in fact, that's the training, the mini workshop that I do in the Where Should I Start series for the workspace. So organizing, it's just a catchphrase, and mostly people use it against themselves. I'm just not organized. I'm not one of those organized people. Well, that's, if it's not your wheelhouse, it is in other people's, and so like mine. So there's a lot of astonishingly simple ways to correct that. And the phases, I call it the evolution of getting things done. So there was an era when it was just all about getting organized and a trillion books written on the topic. Then it became about productivity. Now I'm, on a mission to create, it's all about efficiency, and efficiency requires a certain set of conditions. So it requires, a way to set up your office and manage your paperwork and your work product, because my system dovetails those two things so that there's workflow, so that what's on your desk is only what you're at work on this week. If there's any pixie dust, that's it. So
That's so nice.
yeah.
Okay. I love all these tips. So, I mean, I know your background story. Maybe you can share it. You're definitely organized by nature, probably since you were a child.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that story. I think people would find it very interesting.
Oh, good. It's a story I didn't really remember until I started my business, like 2011, 2012. But I started, I'm thinking about my skills and capacities, like what could I do? What do I know how to do? Turns out my career began in the second grade. And my first clients were my entrepreneur parents. They ran a really busy plumbing and heating business out of the house. And we had the office in the sunroom and a workshop downstairs with like dozens of bins with all those plumbing pipes and parts, and a 4-bay garage in the back with the trucks and the heavy equipment, and workmen were in and out all day. And in the middle of all that, my parents didn't get along. So I started creating. So in the second grade, I learned how to write and tell time. And I started to create 48-hour schedules of childcare and household maintenance, which I would kind of sneak into the file cabinet when nobody was looking. And don't ask me where 48 hours came from. About as far as I could think.
2 days.
And I think that a lot of my line items were really about getting a little more daddy time, to be honest. So, unfortunately, it turns out my parents were uncoachable. But didn't really stop me. All my big girl jobs included bringing order to chaos and making things run a lot more smoothly. Whether it's in the job description or not, I was a Wall Street database designer, specifically user interface, making all the material easy to access, one of my specialties. I've been a custom closet designer and sales trainer for 8 years. Kitchen design. So I really got my spatial chops there. And then I have my 10,000 hours in event management. So, learning how to really simplify things, learning language to make it sticky. That's something I've learned from clients over the past 14 years. And, also like how to stay calm and in the face of wild cards at events, which are usually the people. So that sort of brings me up to here. I've been leading workshops in these areas for 14 years and just got better and better. And from the client side, how do I get it over there? Because when you're born with it, the natural tendency, people think that's really what it takes. But there's really simple models and processes, not 722 steps, really simple processes to create permanent, lasting, intuitive solutions. So
that's a good point. I think I'm big picture, so I don't have to worry about the little details, or that's why I'm not organized, but I can do these big vision things. So I like that you're saying it is a skill that can be taught. Can you tell me, well, first of all, why do you think so many people struggle with being organized? And maybe what do all disorganized people share in common?
Okay, I have the answer, which is backlog. The accumulation of paper, open items, missing systems. It tends, and it's really sneaky, but it just, clutter creep is real in all those domains. And the more you accumulate, and you don't have to be a hoarder, just a keeper, just somebody who too often sends a task to that black hole called later. You're just really creating a buildup, and that's what becomes overwhelming. And not only does it become overwhelming, but it also has an influence on day-to-day decision making, because you're constantly comparing, should I do this, or I have to do so many other things, I can't do this. So chronic avoidance, chronic overbooking, trying to catch up. And that's the most, if you really, this is anecdotal, but I think if you took a snapshot of organized people, they don't have that backlog.
I agree.
Keep current. So one of the primary objectives of all my work is to eliminate the backlog. So in the office, it's really easy. It's set it and forget it. I could do it in a weekend with people if I'm on site. But I also have the workshops. They take a little bit longer, but it's when you know, when you get these models, it's like, wow, that's easy. I haven't really talked about this a lot. I've just really been developing the concept. But the more backlog you have, the less efficient you are. Because it is scattering and it's fragmenting and it's competing priorities. And that doesn't really make for good decisions every single day.
That's a good point, because I was going to ask you what the benefit is. Because I think when you talk about a CEO or a sales director who has so many things on their plate, they know they're disorganized, but that doesn't seem to be as important at the time as landing a new client or handling an account management issue that comes up all of a sudden. So speak to me why it is so important.
Well, there is that structural disorganization and clutter in the workspace, which is typically paper. But then when you dovetail that with the schedule is a different animal. Because that requires adaptive behavior changes. So I always start with a consolidation, whether it's office, schedule, or systems. Consolidate, because the reality is always substantially less daunting than the cacophony. Always.
Okay.
And so you consolidate, you create business model buckets for paper, for open items. And then you really have created a snapshot that lets you compare apples to apples, and you start to make wiser choices about priorities. And you are really looking at the big picture, the inventory. And and then step 2 in the schedule work I do. So that's build a better to-do list. Then we build a better calendar. And a lot of the time there's not sufficient awareness of how you spend your time each week. And adding in what I call the D&D blocks, the do not disturb blocks, for catching up.
That's important. That's a good tip. Like that I was going to ask you, how do you even do this? And it is, you're blocking off a piece of time to do it.
Yeah. So for example, right now I'm working with a wealth manager whose like presenting issue was, everybody says I'm a nice guy, but it always takes me forever and I'm late and stuff like that. And, just an insane number of random free range client meetings every week, 14 meetings a week, which are completely unnecessary. So structurally, we got them down to 7 appointments a week.
Wow.
And the behavioral adaptation was, the dial was way over here on accommodation thinking, rather than, I said, we're not going to eliminate that, but we have to bring it more to center to allow you to actually serve your clients better, to experience less stress and catch up with yourself. Because the open items, that backlog is also like an anchor for people, a judgment criteria for, am I okay? Is this a personal private flaw? It weighs on people. And there's coping mechanisms and kind of getting used to it, but it's not efficient and it's not fun. So the behavioral change is also about being really deliberate about your time and the decisions you make about what you do when. And catching up is one of the most important things that you can do. Now, for executives, for the CEO level, I have a special program called 24 Hours to Caught Up, which is, 6 hours a month for 4 months, and you will have serious traction on the backlog. And sometimes you can't see the benefit and value from over here. Something's wrong. But when you get to the other side of that and you are feeling more and more progress and accomplishment and completion, it's like a whole mind altering experience.
No, I agree. I used to be that person that had like thousands of emails in my inbox. I now operate with like the 0 inbox rule, and I feel so much better. Like it actually helped my anxiety for a lot, because there wasn't anything that I was like, wait, did I email this person back yet? Because everything is properly labeled and accounted for.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So another issue I think a lot of CEOs tell me is I'm the bottleneck. And so they recognize that there's a bottleneck. They recognize that they're probably the bottleneck. And I know you talk a lot about banishing the bottleneck. So can you give some examples of common bottlenecks you see and how they can be prevented if you are organized with the right systems and tools?
Well, one of the chief sources of bottlenecks is not really having a structure to interface with people. Number 2, a set of reliable systems that you can delegate. And number 3, which is the behavioral adaptation, there are ways that founders and the people in charge function there's like a background conversation of, I need to be in control. I could do this faster myself. And then we fall into that backlog loose end area. Another feature of the bottleneck. So creating systems that you trust in collaboration with the key staff members will take CEOs a very long way to not being the bottleneck. And understand, sometimes the solution is in the problem. So, I tried to delegate this, but the person was always making mistakes. So you have to rewind a little bit and say, are they trained? How well did you train them? Did you monitor them? There's a question of competence for the person they're delegating to, of course, but if they have a competent person, they might be sticking their fingers in the pie too much and creating the problem themselves. So it's an exploration. There's not ever just one thing, but over the years, what I found is fascinating for me. I thought, structure and function, those were the important things. But I really discovered there's a default decision-making logic.
Oh, okay. That sounds interesting.
That people use, and it's different for everybody. But I hear it applied for all manner of things. Not returning personal phone calls, because it's been so long and they're mad at me. Did they call you? And there's little ways to just break it up, but you have to do that bit by bit. Reveal the reality and the benefit and value for that specific person to examine their own logic and upgrade it, elevate it to, what will make this work? How could I delegate? How could I nurture my own trust in this person? And I've transformed a number of scenarios where I'm not going to call it an HR issue, but the dynamic between an attorney I worked with and her assistant, it was like a lot of nattering in the background, and we had to bring it full center. I call it getting your Spock on. You got to be like, oh, this is fascinating. Because when you get yourself in the neutral zone, that gives you the ability to just state the facts. You're fine. This behavior doesn't work. This is not, this is a special report that demonstrates my billable hours and my progress for the whole firm. And you're treating it like a print job because it's always filled with errors. But, examining that dynamic, smoothing it out, and then creating a real partnership with the people that support you is an important feature.
That's a really nice way to say it, because sometimes it's not the people, sometimes it's also like the strategy. And I have found that because we provide virtual assistants, if the client is very organized and put together, the VA thrives and the client thrives because you put the VA into good systems.
Yeah.
If the client is disorganized and just throws the VA in, she almost ends up picking up the same bad habits, or it's not as effective. So we always say, like, you have to
make it stick. They may have a good idea for how to do it, and if it's not 360 in implementation, it's a lot more work.
100%. Yeah, you have to. I think people should work with someone like you, get the strategy done right, and then you also know what you can and can't delegate, and then you plug a VA into a good system, and then it runs well.
Yes.
What are some other tips you'd have for someone who's working with the VA? Like, what do they choose to delegate to? What do they not delegate? What tasks do you think a VA is great at doing? And what tasks should only like the CEO do?
I think that CEOs, when you talk about the granular level, there are a lot of technology things, recurring items, that is not the highest and best use of a CEO's time. So that's like the base layer of what a VA should be doing. CEOs, managers, they may forge a more strategic, tactical, like, involvement in the company. That's how they want to conduct themselves. They do want that partnership for picking up the slack or fielding the incoming, whatever it may be. But I think that setting the expectations, treating the VA with respect, they're not of course, you're going to treat a waiter or waitress with respect as well, but they're not there to serve. They're there to empower. So
that's a really nice shift. They're not there to serve. They're there to empower.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's a good quote.
So you could cultivate the skill sets you need as a CEO, kind of what I was talking about before with the bottleneck situation. It's a commitment. It's not a quick fix either.
Agreed. It's not like a VA will never be the salvation that you're looking for. Yep, I see that a lot.
Yes. So, if I'm a competent person coming in to work with a total stranger, I would probably want to have an orientation to the business as a whole. I would want to know the key outcomes, even if it's for 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now. What are your goals for the interim? And are those areas that you want me to support? And what might I not know that I need to know to help you achieve that? So that's a way to kind of elevate the dynamic of the VA.
That's a really great practical tips. Like, you should get them introduced to you, to your company. They should know what you're trying to achieve, and they should know what you want them to achieve as well in the first few months. That's something we ask a lot of clients, is like, what do you want this VA to achieve in the first 90 days?
Yes.
And it's really helped create everyone on like an aligned like vision and goals.
Yeah. And you can kind of create some gamification of it. How do you break it down into a project? That's another lost art, priorities and projects. For a lot of people, the priority is whatever's on fire. But be a gardener, not a fireman. And projectizing things, I love, love, love. It sounds so geeky, but when you have like a giant multi-step item on your to-do list, it's really easy to say, I'm going to do that tomorrow or whenever. But if you break it down into the line items, a lot of good things happen. You really can flesh out exactly what the steps are. You'll start thinking of things you hadn't thought of that would be needed to complete the project.
Right.
You will think about resources for the project. And you can anticipate problems when you really map out a project. But then the coolest thing about a project is it's line items. So instead of all or nothing, like I'm going to take a staycation or a long weekend and just bang this out, you can do a line item a week. You can move that ball up the court every week and experience progress and accomplishment. It's
That
just
feels
the
so good.
failure of not doing the whole thing.
Yeah. You can still check off something, which feels so good.
Yeah.
That's
And it
amazing.
lets you fold it into your busy work week without really disrupting things. And that's part of what goes in the do not disturb blocks, your priorities, your projects.
That's so good. Okay. I could keep talking to you forever about this. For someone who is like, sign me up, I need some help. Where can they find you? Where do they start?
The place to start would be to book a call with me, and I'll send you those links, and they'll be in the show notes. So it's, I use Acuity, and just book a call, 30 minutes. You need 30 minutes plus 30. I'm happy to do that. You can email me, Kathleen at 5out5.com, also in the show notes. And if you want to get in on the on-demand programs, which are on a special right now, pre-launch, $197, you get the whole process of high performance workspace, high productivity schedule, and high efficiency systems. Those are going to be rolling out in the coming months, May and June.
Amazing. Oh man, I feel like that'd be like, what a nice way to walk into summer as like an organized person. You can take that vacation because everything is organized for you. That's amazing. We'll definitely put everything in the show notes so people can connect with you after this.
Great.
And last question, totally a change of gears, but we ask everybody this on our podcast. We always bring it back to Africa somehow. So my question for you is, have you ever been to the African continent? If so, where did you go? And if not, where would you want to go if you got a free ticket? And what country or place or experience would you want to have most?
I've never been. Ethiopia.
Yay. You can't go wrong with Ethiopia.
Yeah. I just sort of intuitively think that would be a very cool. I mean, I'd love to go everywhere in Africa, I think.
Yeah. That's on my bucket list, is to go to every African country. But Ethiopia is great. You get great coffee, good food, lots of cool things to see and do, amazing culture. No, yep, I agree. I'm going there in August, actually.
Oh,
so
excellent.
Yeah.
I want to see pictures.
I will. I feel like our whole suitcase will be filled with like coffee coming back to send gifts. But anyways, Kathleen, thank you again for joining us today. I hope everyone books a call with you, becomes more organized and gets rid of those bottlenecks and can really experience what it's like to be efficient and working. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.